My name, Del Scruggs. Grew up in South Knoxville. We've been here at the Lilly Pad Hopyard Brewery for about 24 years now. Believe it or not, it's flown by. But we call it the Lilly Pad because we're adjacent to the Lilly Bridge, the Lilly Bluff, the Lilly Boulder Field, the Lilly Overlook. And when we had the campground and people were crashing here, we called it the Lilly Pad.
Pretty soon, people would be like, I'm a friend of your friend's friend. And he said it was cool if we camp in your yard. And we're like, yeah, sure. So we ended up having a campground that we didn't mean to start. And porta-johns and all that good stuff. We ended up having to charge. But in the meantime, we still had full-time jobs. And so when Dale was taking out trash, he would be like, what is going on? These kids claim to barely be able to pay $5 a night, but they're drinking craft beer. And he was dumping out the trash on Monday morning and seeing craft beer in the trash can. So he was a brewer.
People liked my beer, kept asking for it, and couldn't sell it. So I would take grain donations from friends to fill up their water bottles. And when it became legal to make beer and sell it on site in Tennessee, I pretty much knew that I wanted to build a building and be able to sell some beer. And I thought it would be a side gig, to be perfectly honest, and totally missed the mark on how much beer we would be selling.
We had 2 beers on tap, and we sold out in 3 days. So it was just like, what? Then slowly but surely, we just kept adding beers. And Calf Killer in Sparta helped us out, helped us meet demand when we first opened because we were just running out of beer so fast. And now we have 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 taps. They're always full of beer. We have a full-time brewer. It's
a lot like making bread. You take ingredients and add yeast, and then once again, the yeast is doing the work. For us, we start by milling our grains. And when we mill the grains, we like to do it fresh. We buy our grains whole and mill them the day that we're brewing with them. Our water comes from Frozen Head State Park. It's a municipal supply in Wartburg. Is actually one of the highest quality streams in the state of Tennessee. So we get the water up to our desired temperature, mix the two. At that point, you're extracting or converting the starches that are in the grains over to sugars that will be usable by the yeast eventually. That's called the mash tun. From the mash tun, we move the liquid, we separate it, the liquid from the grains through a filter process, and then we go over to the boil kettle. At the boil kettle is where a lot of magic happens with the hops. You can add different varieties of hops at different intervals, specialty flavorings if you wanted to at that point. From there, we cool it down through a plate chiller. And when we cool it down into the fermenters, at that point, we add yeast, and not just any yeast. This is not your bread yeast that you get at the grocery store or something like that. There are specialty yeasts all the way through, and that match the particular style of beer or flavor profiles that you want to pull from the wort. It's all wort until you add yeast, then it becomes beer. From there, it sits for 12 days to months, depending on where it's conditioning. Then we keg it, and then fill your glass and into your belly, and hopefully you enjoy it.
Somebody tell me where to put my suits, where to throw them when you get too loose. Somebody tell me where to lay my head when I get tired. Make my bed and say, hey, yeah. Hey, yeah. Hey, yeah. Hey, yeah. And somebody said it's not that hard.